Just when you think you are familiar with The Walking Dead, they changed the entire story on you. Welcome back to Rantin Review Entertainment. We're talking today again about The Walking Dead as we are in part 2 of season 11, the final season, and AMC, of course, has dropped lots of episodes. Depending on if you have AMC Plus or not, you're going to look ahead. I'm going to do these reviews as of right now as if you're watching them on AMC on television and not the AMC Plus versions, although they may change. That might change in the future. But before we get into what happened in episode, what are we at? Episode 10 now in the series of part 2 of season 11. So I want to remind you guys that I got a lot of free goodies down for you in the description box below. So check some of that stuff out. Free stocks, free crypto, free points for the Chase Sapphire Preferred or Reserve card. So if any of that stuff is of interest to you, definitely go look in the description box below and see if there's anything free that you want to get there. So this episode of The Walking Dead, it was another one of those tonal shifts. We had a time jump. Now, of course, we remember at the end of the last episode we did a time jump 6 months ahead, and Maggie was back at Hilltop, which I thought was completely destroyed, but they're rebuilding it. And there, in a stormtrooper suit, is Daryl saying, yeah, we do. We got to do this. We all can imagine what events led up to that. So, of course, we're now going to go back and see all of the events that filled in that time gap, leading us up to that moment where Daryl is at the gates in his stormtrooper suit. And apparently, and you never know with The Walking Dead because they always swerve stuff around in you, but apparently about to attack Maggie, although a lot of people have suspected, myself included, that Daryl may not necessarily be doing what we think he's doing in that situation. But speaking of Daryl, we get to the Commonwealth here, and we start out with, a spooky thing, and there's hands coming through, and it looks like there's walkers coming at the kids, and it's RJ and Judith, and they look very scared. And about a couple seconds into this, I was like, this is a dream. And then I was like, okay, no, it's not a dream, it's a haunted house. And it actually was a haunted house. Daryl's there with them. He fist bumps the guy that kind of scared the kids a little bit, and they come out of this haunted house because it's Halloween time at the Commonwealth. They have costumes, they have prizes, they have they have stuff everywhere. It's just this big, fun, happy place, so it seems, that everybody's running around. Our crew has been there for about a month now, and Daryl seems to be content with everything, which was the most shocking thing to me of all the people, because if you remember back, because again, there's so much of a parallel between this and back in season 5, season 6, almost half of the series ago, when the crew at that time arrived in Alexandria, and Daryl's like, nah, I don't want to do none of this stuff. Well, now, I guess after the last 6 years, or however long it's been on the show, but the 6 seasons of war and more war and more war and more war and dying people all over the place, Daryl's tired of it. He's like, look, I'm done. Let's just enjoy whatever this is. Maybe it's not completely great, but it seems to be fine. You got all these people here. They seem to like it, so let's enjoy it. You got Jerry and his kids dressing up as Shiva, which I thought was so awesome. And then Ezekiel giving Shiva's collar to one of his kids. I thought that was pretty cool. Jerry quietly became like everybody's favorite character on the show, one of their favorite characters on the show. I just love the whole dynamic between him and Ezekiel as well. We see Rosita and Gabriel taking care of Coco, and everybody. Everything looks so great and happy. And Kelly and Connie are doing the little journalism thing. It's like they've all graduated into the real world. They graduated from Walkerville, and now they're in the real world. But it's not the real world, of course. As the episode goes along, we get to see a lot of crazy stuff. Sebastian, that little bastard from before who got in that thing with Eugene, he's even more of a bastard and a little prick, as Daryl called him in this episode. We see him combat training with some of the iconic weapons from our crew from over the history of this show and treating them like they're like trash. Throwing the little katana that Judith had. Daryl's like, be careful with that. He throws it in the woods like it's nothing. He doesn't know how to use the mace. He doesn't know how to use Negan's bat. He doesn't know how to do any of it. Daryl even laughs at him. He goes, you gotta swing all the way through. He's like, it's crap. It belongs on a wall. Come on, let's do my training here, my combat training here. And Mercer's just sitting there looking at this dude that's like, I gotta do this, but damn. And once again, another member of our crew has to save Sebastian's little punk ass. And again, Sebastian gets upset about it. I keep saying they should just let the damn things bite him and let him die. But no. Daryl had to save him to prove a point. Daryl's playing a game with Sebastian, I believe, and this happens twice in this episode. But of course, he's not the only one playing a game with some of the people in our crew. Hornsby is being played, we hope, by Carol. Carol's realizing that Ezekiel's cancer is getting even worse, and then she goes and snoops, as Carol is wont to do, and finds out from Yumiko's brother that Ezekiel's pretty far down on the list to getting treatment. In fact, he's probably going to die. He's not going to get the treatment by the time, or the surgery by the time the cancer has killed him. So Carol, being Carol, is going to do whatever it takes to save her people, including being shady. She's spying on Hornsby, seeing what he needs and everything else, because she knows he's one of the big people in charge. She finds an opportunity, almost gets herself killed, getting this particular wine that Hornsby wants to impress Pamela Milton with. She gets it for him. He's surprised by her ingenuity, but he already knew that she was very smart. We find out the reason for that a lot later on, not in this episode, but Hornsby and Carol matched up. They're very unique people, and I like the fact that they matched them up here, because Carol is kind of understated, and she's something, but she hides a lot of her strength and her power and her abilities, but she's extremely capable. It's the same thing with Hornsby. Hornsby is not in control of the Commonwealth, but he, much like Carol, does a lot of shady stuff on the backside to protect his people the same way she protects hers. And I think there's almost kind of this like mutual understanding that they kind of see each other, and they see like, oh, you're kind of the undercover slick one in your crew, and I'm the undercover slick one in my crew. Daryl and Rosita are training to be stormtroopers. We're just going to call them stormtroopers. They're training to be stormtroopers, having a little bit of a problem adjusting to it. Daryl's essentially living in a trailer park or low-income housing with Judith and RJ, which is amazing to us as fans. Go, that's Rick Grimes' kids. They should not be living in poverty. But they are, because they don't have any money. They don't have a job, so they're kind of living in the lower end of the Commonwealth. And we find out very quickly, dovetailing onto that the Commonwealth has a very pronounced class system. They survived the governor. They survived the wilderness. They've survived the wolves. They've survived Negan. They survived the Whisperers. But now our crew takes on its hardest test ever, classism. And I know a lot of people like to say, oh, this is the way like we live today. Don't get it confused. The Commonwealth is not a capitalist system. The Commonwealth is a caste system. It's a throwback to old European systems. Like, there's not going to be any Eminem coming up from the bottom of the Commonwealth's caste system and rapping his way up to the top. There's no Tyler Perry making plays dressed up in drag who's going to go from the bottom to... No. Once you're in your caste, you are in your caste in the Commonwealth, and you ain't going up. You can go down, though, as we saw from a character that we met back in the extras episodes from the end of season 10. The soldier that Princess beat up in her Splinter episode is here as a waiter. And we find out that he is not very happy about this because he is basically broke. He messed up with Princess, who might feel a little bit bad that she did that for him. And he even said that in that episode. He's like, he was going to be in a lot of trouble. But he is now a waiter, and he can't make any money for his sister and her kids. So he wanted to talk to Pamela Milton. He kind of kidnapped Stephanie, or whatever her name is. He threatens her, holding a knife to her throat. Then things get a little out of control. He realizes what he's done, and he runs away. Daryl immediately goes after him with nobody noticing. Sebastian's barking at Mercer to go do something, but Daryl tracks him back down to the haunted house where we started all of this stuff. In the haunted house, Daryl tosses this guy down from not only killing himself, but also talks him into turning himself in. We didn't get Sebastian showing up out of nowhere, and he's like, oh, Daryl, you finally did something well. Daryl already has read this dude. He already knows that Sebastian, what he really wants is to be seen as a capable, tough guy when he really isn't. So Daryl gives him that perception to the rest of the Commonwealth and says, here, you caught him. And gives the prisoner over to Sebastian, who of course takes it and goes and shows off to everybody and impresses his mother because she's a little worried about it. But Mercer looks at Daryl like, I know that you did not catch this guy. You caught the guy and gave it to him. Mercer knows what's going on, right? He walks out and being escorted out of the grand ball. He's shouting about how it's, rights for all, equality, everything else. And again, he hints that there are thousands more like this in the Commonwealth. Pamela Milton is surprised by this because she thinks everybody's happy with the way things are. Hornsby goes, nah, Now, you know, Hornsby knows better. He knows that there's a revolution coming. Whether or not he's part of that revolution or whether he's looking to take advantage of there being a revolution against Pamela Hilton to take her position, well, we're going to have to watch the rest of the season to find out. The relationship between Mercer and Daryl is really interesting. Early in the episode, Daryl and Rosita are in training for the stormtroopers going through this building that they constructed to train people to work as a team. Daryl, as we all know, doesn't really work well as a team. So Mercer is kind of you can see Mercer, it may look like he's being hard on Daryl, but I think Mercer's trying to get Daryl. He knows Daryl's capable and Daryl's a good person and Daryl's a good soldier. And he wants Daryl to kind of understand this is what you got to do here in order to stay here. And I kind of want you to kind of be on my side. I'm going to show you the ropes. But a lot of people are taking it as Mercer's hard on Daryl. Mercer's not hard on Daryl because he's a bad guy. Mercer's actually a good guy. He's probably going to, spoilers, he's probably going to wind up being on our side. You know, but for right now, I know a lot of people who aren't familiar with some of the backstory to the story think Mercer's the villain. And there's going to be a showdown between Daryl and Mercer. No, Mercer's going to be on our side. And he's already, him and Prince has already kind of got together at the ball, so you see that relationship coming around. Judith was able to get a copy of Motorhead album, an actual vinyl, during this episode. Daryl, once he's become officially part of the Stormtroopers and he's got some money now, he buys Judith, who's living with him. Her and RJ are living with Daryl. He gets her a record player, and they're able to play Eat the Rich, which of course was an appropriate song here. And the entire last part of this episode, you're seeing the stormtroopers kind of raiding a place with the song Eat the Rich blaring in the background, where Rosita goes to that guy's place who had interrupted everything at the ball, and she finds hidden back behind his closet this whole place full of all of this paraphernalia about a rebellion against the Commonwealth. And she starts to think, am I on the right side? Because she even had a kind of a conflict with Magna, who's in the lower end of the caste system, and Rosita, who's part of the authority figures, and, you know, who were once really, you know, they were tight. They fought through Alexandria and everything else. But in this system, they're kind of butting heads against each other. Which there's one thing wrong with that, because Magna's all indignant and like, it's just like the old world. I don't have any opportunities here. And I'm just like, wait. Why don't you just leave? You can go back to Alexandria. You don't have to stay at the Commonwealth. Just get if I was Magna, I would not be sitting there serving drinks. I would get the hell out of there, unless Magna might be part of the revolution. We're going to have to wait and see on that in future episodes of The Walking Dead, season 11, part 2. God, it's a mouthful, but I enjoyed this. I'm really enjoying part 2 of this season. Part 1 of the season started cool, and we're going to have to see if it continues this way with part 2. But part 1, those middle episodes really dragged, and the ending of part 1 was anticlimactic with a very weak cliffhanger. So far, part 2 of season 11, the first 2 episodes have been absolutely fantastic, and a change of pace. We're getting to see our characters in a different position. We're getting to see them all, like, to their own strengths, do their own things within this Commonwealth community. But also you have to remember, some of the people are not here. Aaron is not here. Maggie is not here. A couple of our crew are not here. And of course, Negan is still wandering out in the wilderness. We do know that Negan will be back at some point in time during this season. So it's going to be very curious to see how this all plays out. And I think they're going to go through the Commonwealth story very rapidly. If you know the Commonwealth story from the comic books, they could pretty much do all of that in the next 5 episodes. And I have a feeling they might, or at least the cliffhanger at the end of part 2 of season 11 will be really close to the ending of the Commonwealth story, which then begs the question, what are they going to be doing for part 3? But I want to know what you guys think about this. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Did you enjoy this episode of The Walking Dead, season 11, part 2, Jesus Christ, episode 10? Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, I'll see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reactions and reviews for TV shows and movies here on the Rantin Review Entertainment. Have a good day.